Hello everyone and welcome to the first webinar for the National Landcare Program Growth, Adoption, Productivity and Profitability Project. Today's webinar will be a Q&A on seasonal forecasting and climate models with Jemma Pearl from Agriculture Victoria. But first I'll just give you a quick rundown of how the project will run. So I'm Amy Harwood from Birch Cropping Group and I will be working to deliver the NLP GAPP project. This project is supported by the Department of Agriculture and Water Resources through funding from the Australian Government's National Landcare Program. We're running 7 discussion group meetings through this project, one each in Manangatang, Birchip, Hopeton, Rapanyip, Nil and Quambatook, as well as a meeting for a female-specific group. Following these discussion group meetings, 2 further webinars will be run. The aim of this project is for these discussion group meetings and webinars to focus on topics that you want to see. So at the conclusion of this webinar, you will be directed to a quick survey link. It has 5 questions and should take approximately 3 minutes to complete. Please complete the survey as we will be using your answers to determine topics and presenters for the discussion group meetings and webinars. These topics must contribute to at least one of the 4 key principles of natural resource management, which are that communities are managing landscapes to sustain long-term economic and social benefits from their environment, that farmers and fishers are increasing their long-term returns through better management of their natural resource base, that communities are involved in caring for their environment, and that communities are protecting species and natural assets. Please keep these principles in mind when you are suggesting topics in the survey. Now, before we start the webinar, everyone should be muted. To submit a question, click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Clicking this button will open the Q&A window where you can type your question into the box and hit send. You can also check send anonymously if you don't want your name attached to the question. Now let's get into today's Q&A. I'd like to introduce you all to Jemma Pearl. Jemma completed a Bachelor of Agricultural Science and a Bachelor of Business at La Trobe University before starting her career at the Birch Cropping Group. In her time there, she managed the seasonal climate forecasting community of practice and worked on a number of managing climate variability projects, including the reboot of the Climate Kelpie website. She also played a role in the setup of an extensive weather station and soil moisture probe network across the Wimmera and Mallee. She has now been at Agriculture Victoria since early 2019, where she spends her time across climate change, seasonal climate, soil moisture and biosecurity projects. Thank you, Jemma.
Thanks, Amy. I will just quickly get my presentation up. So thanks, Amy, for having me, and thank you for joining us today, guys. Just give me, where is this presentation gone? There it is. So yes, I guess Amy said I work with Agriculture Victoria, and many of you probably know Dale Gray and Graham Anderson, and they are luckily enough to work in their team. I guess before we get any questions from the floor, I guess a few things that we really need to consider at this time when it comes to seasonal forecasting. And I guess the one thing that everyone's got on their mind at the moment is how's the season going to go, and how the forecast that we're getting at the moment, how that's going to play out. So I guess the one thing we really need to remember is that, and I've got this on the wrong screen, haven't I, Amy?
Yeah.
Yep, thanks.
Sorry.
Get that one. It's all right. For some reason my computer decided to change screens. It's funny that it changed that from when we practiced it. That's funny. Right, let's start that again. Now that you can actually still not see it because my computer's being silly. Give me 5 seconds, guys, and I'll see if I can. Let's try that again. Sorry, 5 seconds, everybody. I will get this back up and going. That's better. Yes. Can fix a technical issue when I need to. Look at that. Okay, so autumn predictability barriers is what I was going to explain. And what we mean by an autumn predictability barrier is that at this time of the year, unfortunately, our climate models, our seasonal climate models, really don't have the best skill in determining what's going to happen for the rest of the season. And we know that quite well. People always complain, and we understand that. But I guess what we've just got to do is work with what we've got. And the reason why we really struggle with predicting at this time of the year is because our climate drivers, our things that we look at to see what's going to happen, aren't set up and won't probably set up until closer to mid-year, and then of course by spring we definitely know what's happening. So for example, last year we had a positive IOD, so Indian Ocean Dipole, and it wasn't until partway through the season that finally showed up in the surface temperature maps, which is one is up on your screen at the moment, and it's from then that we could have more confidence in what the model was saying. So this sea surface temperature I've got here, it is from last month, but it is the latest one that's been in the Fast Break newsletter. So as you can see, so we look at our two areas in the ocean, the Pacific and the Indian, to really look at what's going to affect us. So in the Pacific Ocean at the moment, where we look at the El Nino Southern Oscillation, not much happening out there, and also not much happening in the Indian. So this always happens over our summer period. When we get the northern monsoon or wet season period, all the region on our side of the equator, so the southern side of the equator, in those temperatures in the ocean, all normally go back to neutral or reset themselves over summer. So we've got to wait until they show their cards and their hand until we have a better understanding of what's going to happen to us. Now, even if we get a climate driver, that doesn't mean we're definitely going to get, drier or wetter conditions. We just need to remember that. But that's why our models struggle right now, is because the climate drivers aren't telling us anything. The other thing we really need to think about and remember right now is that when we run a model, or we give a model gives a forecast, they're giving you an average of what a heap of model runs. So what a model will do, will run whole different runs, which you can see in all these little grey lines here, and the average of those, or the middle of those, is what we get given. So although this, example run here gives you an average forecast answer, there are runs in that model that are going drier and ones that are going wetter. So what we need to remember, and for example, using the BOM model, that the BOM model gets run 99 times to determine the forecast, or to come up with a forecast. So it will be running 99 of these little lines and then coming up with the middle, or the average, and that's the one that gets communicated. So for example, closer to when the model actually gets run, they're going to be tighter, so the confidence in that model is, or the outcome is closer, and the confidence is higher. But as you project out further, that's when the confidence gets further out. And that's why, I guess, a 1 to 2 day or 3 day weather forecast is a lot more confident than an 8 or 7 and 8 day forecast. So we just got to remember that. And I guess we as humans are not great at remembering probabilities or understanding probabilities. And for anybody who is interested in understanding that phenomenon, there is a great book written by a Nobel Prize economic scientist named Daniel Kahneman, and he talks about the two parts of our brain in which you think fast and you think slow. So a lot of the time when we make quick decisions or fast decisions, we're really bad at taking in the probabilities and understanding the probabilities of those decisions, and that's because we're using probably our instinctive brain is the easiest way to do it, the thing that keeps us alive. So something that we have to think fast about, it's more about making a quick move to get out of a situation. When we think slowly, that's when we're better at actually understanding the science and understanding the probabilities, and we'll make a better long-term decision normally. But our instinctive brain is there to keep us safe. So moving on and talking a bit about probabilities, when we have, I guess, what we call climatology, which is just if all the options are out on the table, you know, we've got no inclination if it's going to be wetter, drier, or average. We talk about deciles as having even probability. So these ones are split out into deciles, but we have grouped, you know, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. So this little awesome little graphic here is being produced as part of a Managing Climate Variability project called Forewarned is Forearmed, in which both the Birch Cropping Group and AgVic are a part of, but there's a lot of different players involved, including GRDC, a lot of the other RDCs, and the Bureau of Meteorology. So this is a little product that BOM are working on releasing as part of the project, and I think is awesome. I think a lot of the project members also agree, because it gives you a better understanding of the actual spread of the probabilities that may occur from a forecast. So as I said, that, you know, the BOM runs their model 99 times, and you can visualize it like this, or you can visualize it as this. So for example, if we ran the model 99 times, I'll make it easier, say 100, so the percentages are simpler. It means that 33% of those times, the model said the outcome is going to be decile 1 or 2. And it's only said it's only going to be 8% of the times, 9 and 10. So while you may receive a official forecast saying it's possibly going to be drier than average, it doesn't mean that average or wetter than average are completely impossible, because of the probabilistic nature of it, that these are also possibilities, but just not a higher chance of those. So we just got to remember that an emphatic forecast saying that you're going to get a decile 1 and 2 is not the case. We're not saying it's definitely going to be 1 and 2. There's all these other options, but there's a lesser chance of those options. And so these plumes are just modelled in a different way. So I think that's a great way of looking at it. The way we've done in the past at AgVic, and for anyone who's, I guess, come across or been on the subscriber list for the break products in their time, will know the fast break table that Dale Gray puts together. And while we can't, at a lot of the models, understand or get the information for all of the actual plumes and the percentages of each of those plumes, what we can do is have a look at different models and see what they're saying. That gives us a better understanding of possibly what's going to be the higher end, lower end, and what's in the middle. When they're all talking the same language, that's when we've got more confidence in what they're saying. But when they're all talking different things, then that's when there's clearly the skill or the confidence in that forecast isn't as high. So this table, although it's very, very hard to read, and I do love it once I worked out how to read it. But I guess all you need to really understand at the moment is that what we do is Dale looks at each of the individual models at the top here, a few multi-model ensembles, and the statistical model coming out of Queensland, and is able to populate this table. What he does do nicely for us, though, is then makes it into this little bar graph, which makes it easier to read. So it gives you that spread of percentages, like the BOM product that is being tested at the moment, and it gives you a bit of an idea of how the models are sitting or where they're sitting. So at the moment, the majority of the models are saying that they're not seeing anything in the forecast, so it's not pushing us, no climate drivers pushing us in either direction. So they've gone for a neutral stand. Whereas for temperature, they're probably sitting higher on the warmer temperatures there. But it's just another way of remembering that, you know, even though we might get told it's, you know, the forecast is saying average or neutral, it doesn't mean that options outside of these are not available or aren't going to happen. We've just got to understand that, yes, that's what the majority is saying, but there are ones lying either side. On that principle, and I guess this is going to weather forecasts rather than seasonal forecast, I understand that there was, in that last bit of rainfall, there's people saying, oh, but, you know, BOM didn't predict it and all that kind of thing. We understand summer storms are really hard, but you're also able to look at different weather forecasts too, and different options and different models and what they're saying. So this is actually a really cool little website. Just Google, I don't even know how you want to say that word, but really cool little site. It gives you the option to have a look at what the different models are saying on how much rainfall you might get in the next 2 to 3 days or the next 10 days. And it's really quite interesting to see when they're all agreeing. So I think it looks like there's at least 3 models here, maybe 4 models at least agreeing for Bendigo that we might get 2 mils in the next 2 or 3 days. While that will change as it gets possibly change as it gets closer, at least there's some like more than one model saying the same thing, so there's got a little bit more confidence in it. I remember looking at this model back on the 13th of December 2018 when we got that amazing rainfall in Birchip, and just seeing this was definitely not 10 mils, this line, it was more like 140 mils. And just looking at the different models on where they thought how much rainfall Birchip was going to receive, and some of the models did really well. They did predict quite high rainfall, while some of them were a bit further, but it gave you a bit of an idea that the options that the models were saying was quite varied and quite a large difference between them all. So don't just look at one forecast. It's not going to be emphatic. It's not going to tell you exactly what you get, but having a look at multiple forecasts, looking at multiple models gives you a better idea of what may happen, and give you an opportunity to prepare for it. Before I ask if there's any questions from you, Amy, and if anybody has got any, I really would recommend, that's Graham's scroller going through there. Clearly he recorded this and I didn't take that out. I really recommend, if you haven't already, subscribe to The Break, and that's why Graham has got that set up. Subscribe to The Break either by emailing us at that email or get onto the climate risk page on the AgVic website. So there will be the next climate webinar with Dale Gray is going to be held on the 15th of April for Victoria, and next week will be the second Fast Break newsletter for the year, and the very fast break will begin again in April. So don't miss out on either of them or any of them, and make sure you subscribe. Happy to take any questions, Amy. If I've made no sense whatsoever to people, please also let me know.
Thank you very much, Gemma. That was great. Haven't got any questions in yet. Please, if you have any questions, Q&A button down the bottom. You can also check send anonymously. Just type your question in if you don't want your name attached to the question.
But yeah, if anybody wants to contact us at any time, yeah, the Break email address is probably the best place. From there, you'll either get Dale, Graham, or I reply to you, and yeah, we hope that we can provide some more insight soon. There is also quite a lot of information on a few of our other pages, including, I'll find it for you. The forecast for profit page. Why does this keep pausing on me? Go away. I don't know why my screen just stopped, Amy, but that's all right. So the forecast for profit page also has a heap of information on there that will hopefully help in deciphering some of this information.
Excellent. Well, we still haven't got any questions in, so I'm just going to say thank you very much, Jemma, for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in while I'm talking and we will answer them after. We'll answer them during. I'll just go into my little finishing up bit, or if you have any questions, again, you can email Jemma at the email that she said before. So again, once you leave the webinar, you'll be redirected to a screen with a quick survey link, 5 questions, about 3 minutes to complete it. Please fill it in, as we will be using the topics and presenters that you suggest for deciding for the future meetings and webinars. This webinar has been part of the National Landcare Program Growth, Adoption, Productivity and Profitability Project, which will include discussion group meetings and further webinars. If you would like to be kept in the loop of when these meetings and webinars are coming up, please contact me at amy.harwood, HARWOOD, @bcg.org.au. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you again, Jemma.
Easy. Thanks, Amy.